Okay, so in the previous screencast, I asked the question: why do we discriminate in their choice of a sexual partner? And basically, one of the things that we saw was that if people do not discriminate, then there's a possibly high chance that our genes will be mixed up with somebody with terrible genes, which would lead to decreased fitness of our offspring. So we imagine that some ability to discriminate the quality of genes evolved, and this would not obviously have been observed in the genes directly, but it could well be that certain correlates of genetic fitness might be literally written on your body. In other words, people who are healthier are more likely to have good genes than people who are less healthy. So things such as skin tone, bright eyes, general kind of healthiness might be indicative of good underlying genetic quality. And if somebody evolved the ability to better than average determine whether a particular sexual partner was high quality genes or low quality genes, and you chose somebody preferentially who had higher quality genes than lower quality genes, then that obviously gives your offspring a head start so that they're better able to survive, because you're mixing your good quality, your decent genes with somebody else who has decent genes. Okay, so it's increasing the likelihood that we're going to have viable offspring. So bad genes equals decreased fitness. Decreased fitness is less likely to breed. So ultimately, you're less likely to pass on the genes, or the genes are less likely to survive to reproductive age. Remember that stuff we talked about in the first seminar. So signals of genetic quality, we've already mentioned a few of them, such as a lustrous skin, it's sometimes called, bright eyes, good quality hair, all those kind of things. But basically, many of the things that are indicative of genetic quality are what we would call good looks. And good looks are hard to fake. Well, ancestrally, it would be hard to fake because you were born with the looks that you had. But of course, technology has come to the rescue for the people who are unfortunate enough to be born with less good looks, in the form of, first of all, makeup, which was simply a way of changing skin tone, maybe accentuating some features and de-emphasizing some other features which are considered to be unattractive or attractive. And then, of course, more recently with cosmetic surgery, which allows people to kind of better, improve their looks even more. So traditionally, this would have been a so-called costly signal. Okay, so it's very difficult to fake good looks, at least ancestrally. So this is important for both sexes, fractionally important, more important for males than females. So it could be that good looks is a kind of honest signal of genetic quality, of underlying genetic quality. Honest because only the people with good genes are able to have the best looks. Because people with bad genes, this can lead to birth abnormalities, which can lead to people being less attractive. And if you remember back, if you go back to the first screencast, I discussed this with respect to the widow bird, where females prefer a long tail, presumably because a long tail is a difficult to fake signal of underlying genetic quality. Same with peacocks, because only the birds with the best genes are able to grow the longer and more brightly coloured tails. So symmetry is thought to be an important indicator of genetic quality in humans, and possibly other species too. And to show symmetry, what usually is the case is that the more symmetrical a face is, the more attractive that person is judged. Okay, this is a slightly amusing slide here. You can see in on the left-hand side we've got good old Johnny Depp, quite as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as he used to. The one in the middle is basically two halves of the left-hand side of his face, so we can simply take a copy of the left-hand side of his face, chop it in half, flip that over, and that produces that, which is arguably better looking, certainly more symmetrical. And then this, fortunate picture is of the two right-hand sides of his face flipped over. So it doesn't always work, but quite often it depends upon how well you've done the photoshopping. And you can see this one on the right-hand side here is slightly wider than the one in the middle, which is narrower than the one on the left here. So symmetry does, by and large, lead to more attractive faces, although arguably in this case it doesn't. But seen these before. If we have relatively asymmetrical faces like this and present people with a scale on which to rate them as to how attractive they think they are, they tend to rate these people as being less attractive than people who are more symmetrical. And similarly with the male here, the hair simply being removed in order to make it a judgment of the face rather than a judgment of face plus hair, we find that this person is judged as being less attractive than this person here, who has been made more symmetrical. So we tend to find more symmetrical people more attractive. So symmetrical faces and Little 2001 are more attractive, and this is thought to be signs of parasite resistance. And parasites here just simply means bacteria, viruses, and other kind of things which might reduce your fitness, other kind of bugs which live on us. And we want to resist those parasites, because if we don't resist those parasites, it can lead to, first of all, our physical bodies, our lungs and hearts and all these kind of things, our immune systems being compromised, and it also leads usually to less symmetry. So do symmetrical faces genuinely correlate with attractiveness? I'll move on from this, same kind of thing here. Well, they do, at least so current research shows that physical features show some kind of signal of underlying genetic quality. So people who are more symmetrical tend to have fewer chromosome abnormalities and genetic diseases. People who are more symmetrical tend to have experience fewer serious illnesses, which might show two things. First of all, they've got stronger immune systems, but also it might be that those illnesses, particularly childhood illnesses, are what maybe led to the face to become less symmetrical. And things such as concentration problems, muscle soreness, shortness of breath and backache. So essentially more symmetrical people, and it turns out more attractive people, tend on average to be healthier. So when we're choosing somebody and we go for their looks, the way they looks, and we ask the question, why do we find certain things attractive in the opposite sex, such as symmetrical faces, nice hair, clear eyes? Well, it's because those things are attractive in order to motivate us to want to mate with them. And people who are less attractive, we tend to be less motivated to mate with them. Now, of course, this is only one tiny little aspect of mate choice, and many other aspects such as intelligence, personality, commitment, kindness, how much they like you, are also important considerations which are explored within the literature. But this is just a simple example here, and we'll move on maybe to look at those later.